we, the jury, on the charge of manslaughter in the first degree while committing a misdemeanor on or about April 11, 2021, in Hennepin County, state of Minnesota, find the defendant guilty.
I mean, it's just a state of shock. A jury finding former Minnesota cop Kim Potter guilty on 2 counts of manslaughter. She faces up to 25 years in prison for the shooting death of 20-year-old Dante Wright during a tense traffic stop. She says she mistook her gun for her taser. Activists say she and her former police colleagues violated Wright's civil liberties. Criminal and civil rights attorney Brian Claypool joins me now. This is a very rare case, one that we do not see often. A high-level source of mine within the NYPD told me this hour regarding this verdict that this is a dreadful decision for the future of policing. What will this mean for the future war on cops?
Hey, Julie, great to be back with you, and Merry Christmas. I tend to disagree with that comment. I mean, I think this verdict is not a condemnation of all police officers nationwide. What it is a validation that we as citizens expect and deserve more from well-trained police officers. That's what this verdict means. And I think we have to have in place a set of consequences if a police officer like Kim Potter, with 26 years, can't distinguish between a gun in her right hand out of her right side of her holster that clicks and weighs twice as much as a taser, and she can't decipher the difference between the two. We have to have some degree of consequences.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There should be accountability. You've been on the force for 26 years, and I'm not saying that there's any excuse for it. Obviously, if you are on the force and you carry a weapon, it is your responsibility to use that weapon safely and obviously know the difference between a taser and a gun. My question, though, is the charges that were brought against her, because this was a very difficult decision for jurors to make, which is why it took them 4 days of deliberations. She now faces not only up to 25 years behind bars, but she was also found, and this is where it gets complicated, found guilty on first and second-degree manslaughter. Some people believe that perhaps those charges don't necessarily apply because she claims that it was an accident, and so therefore maybe the charges should have been lessened, but certainly does not give cops a free range, obviously, to go and shoot and kill people.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. The language in the Minnesota statute, Julie, for first-degree manslaughter says that Potter would have had to use such force and violence that death is reasonably foreseeable. A jury said yes to that. Why? Because they did look at the totality of the circumstances and how, like you said earlier with this traffic stop, it started with the traffic stop. Officer Potter said, I wouldn't have pulled over this guy. She said that on cross-exam. So why did you pull over Dante Wright for an infraction for his license plates? Then it led to other incidents of Dante Wright's out of the car, he's handcuffed by a trainee. How does he get back in the car? Proper procedure would have been to pull him to the back of the car. He jumps back in the car, and then you have an issue of pointing a gun at him with a potential crossfire because you have another police officer on the passenger side who should not have been reaching into that car, because you're only supposed to be over there to look for weapons or if somebody else is in the car. So the jury felt that all of that, the totality of the circumstances, led to a conclusion that her pulling a gun, and here's another key, Julie. Here's the key, I think, for appeal. She pointed that gun, and it was more than a split second, right? It was at least a couple seconds, and that was enough for the jury to find that she used the force and violence.
Lawyers for Wright's family are also pushing for the harshest penalty, as you know. They are using the conviction to advocate for police reforms. The defense will most likely, as you just said, file an appeal. And we know the appeal is coming. The question is, I guess, what difference will it make in the end, do you think?
Well, that's a great question. And if you look at the recent conviction of Mohammed Noor, remember that was a black officer recently convicted in the same jurisdiction, same courthouse, for accidentally killing a white woman. Here's what's interesting, Julie. He was convicted in that case of a third-degree murder and an appellate court and second-degree manslaughter. But this is important. The appellate court recently threw out that conviction. And it's just what you're getting to. The appellate court said there, well, wait a minute, we don't think there was enough evidence that Noor, in that case, exhibited human indifference toward life. So that's important, because I expect lawyers for Potter to file an appeal to toss out the first-degree manslaughter charges on the same basis, that what evidence is there that she exhibited human indifference toward Dante Wright's life when she said it, when both sides agreed it was an accident. So they do have a reasonable shot on that appeal.
Right. I mean, the lawyers representing her has basically said, you know, that it is an accident. She admitted to it. She certainly can't deny it, obviously, but there's camera video. But nonetheless, we're going to have to wait and see how this turns out with the appeal, which should be expected in the new year. Brian Claypool, thank you very much. Griff.
You bet. Thanks, Joey.